Okay, so what is today's date? Today we are here with the Observer, May 29th,
Yep.
2022. What time is it?
406.
4:06. And we are here with Jack Chavez. Reason I'm not painting the camera is because don't have multiple microphones. I'm just trying to keep things in the center. So the topic today is, it could be quite varied. I'm going to try and stay on topic. But this has to do with the intelligence at Bachelors Grove Cemetery and how it interacts with different people, with me, and other people that are even unaware that they get in touch with them, kind of thing. So where the hell do we begin? This video is going to go long, so I'm going to cut in and out with this kind of stuff. So Jack.
Yes.
We are sitting at this new location in Rubio Woods that I had designated to our friends of the Grove, we'll call them right now, for a new way of contact, a new area of contact.
Well, why did you choose this location?
Because it was isolated, number one. Mm-hmm. You don't see roads. You hardly hear roads. That's why we're here today, so we can have this discussion more quiet. There's no real trail. Nobody really comes along. And hopefully in the future, if the light starts showing, you can easily judge where no normal person can be. Some of the electronic equipment that I would like to use out here at some point, you won't have distractions from car lights, planes that have strobes. The canopy here is good. There's a big host of things, but so we're gonna pause here with this plane.
You and your plane.
Deplane. Hey boss, deplane. That's my only downfall, these planes, living in Chicago. But we're going to keep it rolling until I run out of memory.
Keep it alive.
I've got about 30 gig left.
In a while, I'm getting hungry.
You getting hungry?
In a bit, I will.
Yeah, I had to eat before I got here. I got something to snack on if you want it. So. Nature bar, granola thingy. We'll hear your stomach rumbling like the plane. So yes, folks, this is going to be one of those conversations. It's kind of in the raw. There's going to be things that are mentioned that I may or may not bleep out, and I'll explain that as time goes on. So, Mr. Plane. Okay. Where should I really begin this kind of stuff? So I'm glad you brought it up. Why did I designate this spot? That's a big portion of it. Okay, so by now people know that I mentioned that for the most part anyway, the intelligence we're interacting with at the Grove is not dead people, and they are not human. They do have a solid tangible factor to them. There's another factor to it that's has a solid appearance in nature, but is actually, according to some other information we'll get into, are holographic in nature. Okay, this conversation is going to get pretty messed up. The reason I brought Jack and the Observer here today was so I can get them to vouch for certain things. Apparently Jack is forgetting certain things, which is actually very intriguing for me and the Observer, and I'm sure maybe even for himself.
Yeah.
So let's start with one where it's the being on the path. April 30th. If you roll back in time on the YouTube channel, April 30th, I made a report of seeing a figure on the path. I made it extremely obscure, like details, very little details. And I even mentioned toward the end probably that I'm leaving these details out, and I was hoping people would show up. Maybe the beings would show themselves to you as they had shown themselves to me. But the nature of why they had shown themselves to me made me believe that nobody else was going to be able to see them. And we're going to get into that. And we're going to I'm going to describe what they look like today. I think we should go that far.
Yeah.
However, I was unaware of really who they were. And it took about a year, almost a year, and sitting at this location we're recording at when they telepathically said, contact Jack, being Jack Chavez. He will help you provide answers, because it was bothering me. Who are they really? And I thought, well, what the hell would Jack know? Honestly, Jack, I
Yeah.
barely know anything about you.
Right.
Okay, so it's like, what the hell would he know?
Mm-hmm.
So I whipped out my phone. It would be nice to do a time date stamp when I did it. I doubt you can probably pull it up. In the meantime, while I'm talking, maybe you can find it. I'm like, okay, fine, I'll contact Jack. So I pull out my phone, message him through Facebook, which is what he's looking up. But I couldn't tell Jack, hey, this is why I'm contacting you. It just doesn't work that way. It's a bad thing. Not that I lied to him, but I decided that I wanted Jack out here to gauge how the public was going to react to some of this information that we will reveal today.
Going from today or before?
The first initial contact when I said, hey, I want you to come out to the Grove.
Oh.
That'd be last year.
Yeah.
But we don't talk that much on Facebook, so it should be too hard to find. Okay, so I did that. I contacted Jack, and he was able to meet up with me that particular day. We talked at the picnic table south of the cemetery, and the basics of it was, okay, here's this information. From your perspective, interacting with the public, you're starting with your conferences and your speeches, you're interacting with the public. How do you think they're going to take it? Your response basically was, if you can remember exactly, because you seem to forget some of the conversation. I wish we would recorded it. Was no, the public is not going to handle this well. It's going to be a bad thing to say.
Yeah, my reasoning behind that was because I think if you had told the public everything that you felt that you knew was what was going on, people are just gonna think it's crazy talk.
Number one, crazy talk.
Crazy talk, and then it would become just a tourist attraction. Not that Bachelors Grove isn't already,
right?
But it'll be more like, oh, let's get our friends and conjure beings.
And everyone seems to relate it to aliens and extraterrestrial. Right. And I think that's inappropriate and complicated because I don't see them as that necessarily.
Well, that's a yes and no, though.
Right, I know. It's because it gets complicated right. Based on what you're going to find out today.
That's a yes and no.
Okay, so at one point I was describing this being on the path. Let me do that now.
Yeah.
Okay. And the reason, and some of the things that happened before this being revealed itself. So starting around 12, 13 years old with me, this is the short version of it, there were things that were interacting with me on ways that even my family was experiencing. Things flying around the house, things of a very physical nature, things that scared the family. And for me, though, I took it in good stride, and it stuck with me for pretty much my whole life. However, at one point this year, once I started revealing over time that the beings I was interacting with here at the Grove were directly related in some way from my childhood and beyond, I posed this question to them. I said, because I had a feeling like I wouldn't be on the planet much longer, for whatever that means. I'm like, I think it's time. I want to see what you look like. It's time. I'm ready for it, if that's the case. I think I deserve that much. Right. And so there was a point, and I'll throw in some footage of this, of me doing this, when I built the Raspberry Pi kind of camera network with all this tech stuff. About 5 or 6 days in a row, I was filming the front entrance around 6 o'clock because things usually happen there. And you think my interaction with these beings, I could put a camera down and say, okay, roll it. It doesn't work that way. But I did it anyway. Now, it was just one particular day where it got really cold, and I decided, I'm not going to film. However, during that same day, that was when I was putting these thoughts out to them that I think I'm ready to see you. However, my communication back from them in that telepathic way was, and I'll try to keep this short, was, well, we can't just walk up to you face to face. I don't know if that was because it wasn't a good idea or logistics or whatever, but I know they have a technology, okay, because they're not dead people. And from them, they told me that a hologram was something that was a possibility, capability. And I said, okay, I'm willing to accept a hologram. I just need to know that it is a hologram because of some of the interactions that they give me from a sciencey learning based kind of thing. I need to know it's not a hologram, not a timeline thing or whatever. I know this is all crazy stuff, right, Jack? It's crazy.
It's a lot to take in.
It is. So I said, okay, in order for me to know that it's a hologram, my idea was to pick the color yellow, because there's a significance to the color yellow here at the Grove. It's a rare thing. And so what ended up happening on that day that I had decided to leave was they ended up doing exactly what I asked, because part of the hologram situation was I wanted them to walk down the trail by the cemetery gates on the southwest side. I needed a front profile view of what they look like, and then I needed them to go behind a particular bush and go towards the cemetery to give me a side profile view. So when I did leave, I got that funny feeling. I turned around and I saw somebody already walking. I'll clip some pictures in so you can get a better idea of where this whole layout is. I had witnessed something walking down the trail. Now, when I first saw it, it was full gray. And I thought, wow, talk about looking like a ghost at Bachelors Grove. Mm-hmm. But you're close enough to see this thing where you're like, okay, no, this is not human. You know the head. The head was elongated, partially elongated. It's a very skinny person, by the way, but partially elongated with its head. It even looked like its neck was kind of funny because it actually tipped its head back at a point when it was walking, and then went like this, almost like it wanted me to see all these details. Very bony structure, sunken in kind of blackish looking eyes, like just this weird boniness to it. It looked like it had hair, a patch of hair here, but it didn't look like normal hair. And I'm trying to remember all these details. I don't know, Jack, if this is triggering any. I'm hoping, because you forgot some details here. So as it approaches this little hump of dirt near the cemetery entrance, it's now going behind this one particular bush. And now I don't see it. So I go to pull out the binoculars that I had to go look. Now I barely got it up like this when the being started walking out from the bush towards the cemetery fence, not the entrance, but the fence. And now what I'm seeing is, I'm hoping to do a representation, is as it's walking, there's like this flat line that forms as it's walking, and I'm seeing in between its back and this flat wallish thing is this yellow light. Still not clicking though, but I'm seeing this yellow light, and I'm fucking amazed. I'm like, holy shit, what the fuck is this? And now I see all these sparkly colors of different types, but now I'm seeing these shapes, whether they go boom, boom, like a little L, or a circle with a line through it, not a cube, but and they would spin, like almost like three-dimensional free space. These symbols are spinning while these sparkly things going on with kind of a yellow background to it. And I should probably not hide this fact, but at some point this communication was stare at these symbols, stare at the light. Okay, it's important. And so I did. I took more focused my mind on that versus watching what this person was looking like with a side profile. And eventually, the colors and everything disappear. So now I'm focused on the being walking, and it's getting closer to the fence. And it gets to the fence, facing north, starts turning west all the way around, and now faces me for a moment and just stares at me. I'm not creeped out, but I'm like, this is so fucking cool. Like, it's looking right at me, It turns back, looks at the bush, and walks back towards the bush. But as it's walking towards the bush, now I'm focused more on its legs, because it looks like a woman's summer dress down to past the ankles, and it's swaying. It's swaying, right? And it goes behind this bush again. And of course, I pull out the binoculars, and I'm walking up on this thing slowly. I'm not taking my eyes off anyway. Of course, there's nothing behind this bush, as I reported in the video. Now, some of the details when I first had witnessed it was, as far as clothing, it had clothing all the way down to its wrist, each side. It looked like a robe, but there was no hood. It had a V thing open up in here, open chest kind of thing. And at the waist, it had kind of a bulginess to it. It wasn't until the side profile view that I could get a better idea, but that's how it was when it was first coming up. There was a whitish look to its chest area. There was something just all wrong about the clothes. What are some of the other details that I might be missing here? But this is what I had relayed to Jack. Now, at some point during this conversation with him, I was triggering something within you that made you want to pull out your phone, which apparently you don't remember fully.
Well, I remember pulling out my phone. I remember showing you pictures of what I think it could have been, and you're like, no, not that, not that. And then I pulled out, according to you, I pulled out a picture, and it was more of what you saw.
I said, damn, that looks really close.
And that's the part I don't
But
remember.
there's discrepancies.
Yeah.
And I just dismissed it.
Right.
Because I did a Google search thing, like much later on, after witnessing this thing, I'm like, what is it? So I punch in little alien or whatever, right? Alien's a bad word. But, you know, when it's non-human, that's what you start with. And I'm like, no. And you come up with these, geez, I'm blanking. Not the tall whites, but the Nordic stuff, the Nordic mythologies kind of stuff. I'm like, yeah, but you know, it's not. The hair that I saw was like white, and they say blondish with the. So it wasn't blonde. I did mention the word blonde to you because most people represent when you say blonde, it's sometimes with white. But no, it was a very whitish kind of looking patch of hair. It wasn't like a ponytail that I saw or anything. What else is here? But yeah, you pulled that picture out, and I'm just like, whatever. You know, I dismissed it. And I ended up getting a little focused on the whole Nordic thing a bit because of the sleeve nature of the clothing.
Right, because you were interested in the Nordic aspect of it. You just said that it wasn't exactly what you saw. But there was aspects to it that you found interesting.
Qualities to it with the clothing. Definitely not the facial features and all this kind of stuff like that. Because your typical Nordic stuff has more of a human look. So. At some point, let's see here. I wish we were recorded that moment, right?
I know.
Yeah, I do kind of remember you did show me more than one picture. I just remember that one when you showed me because I'm like, how the hell did you just pick out this? It's an obscure photo.
Okay. And you went to look for it later on.
I did. So when I had left, you know, these beings told me that Jack was going to be somehow involved in helping me figure out who they were, this particular photo and that kind of stuff. I'm like, why, you know? And as time went on, he's showing me this photo that he can't remember. But observer, now we can get you in. I know we're boring you a bit. I'm trying to stay on topic though. After I had this conversation with Jack, I did eventually contact you.
Yep.
And eventually you did get to see a photo of this.
Yeah.
And so the same photo that Jack seems to not be able to remember.
Yep.
Okay.
Definitely.
For what it's worth, you know, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's weird.
It is weird because before we started recording, we were like, you were showing me the picture that I had showed you, and I was like, I don't remember showing you this picture.
But something triggered it, and when I brought up the holographic nature of this thing, you're like, you said that they had some quality with their.
I remember that.
Okay, what were the details of that? Because I don't remember all the details. What do you remember? The quality of the holograph with the language or something or other, the shapes? I think it was the shapes.
Yeah, well, yeah, there was a couple things there. So what I was telling you is that there are people who take hallucinogens will see these geometric shapes in 3D form.
Okay.
And they vibe.
But this had something to do with the Nordic thing, I think, too.
Right, and also. People will report that there are lights around them. There's an aura around them. Sometimes when they appear around lights.
Okay.
And that's...
Whether that has any real significance to this or not, whatever. It's just, I remember you bring somehow it triggered this excitement in you, and we were laughing about it.
Well, I
the Nordic
thing. Just found that interesting, you know?
Right.
I mean, you're seeing this like slit open, and there's yellow light coming out of it.
Right. It was like stretched. It stayed yellow as it stretched, like it was attached to the spine of this being.
Yeah.
And just moved. And as it spread out, as it got to a certain point, it was wide to see these yellow. Then that's when all the funny stuff started happening in there. And by the way, that's why I wanted people to go out and maybe possibly run into this thing, because if you could provide those details, how could you imagine that stuff? How could you fantasize that? These weird shapes and colors and sparkles and stuff that I would have described. If a witness would have come forward, I would have been like, they're not lying. They would have seen that, but apparently nobody probably cared to listen to me or couldn't make it up. I don't know, whatever.
Go ahead.
No. I just you go on too.
So at this point, I think people will be wondering, well, what the heck is this? What's going on? Why are they contacting you?
Right. Exactly, which could get probably complicated.
Right.
But the point was trying to identify them. So when we first met, I showed you that arrowhead.
Yeah.
I don't remember if that was the first day we had our powwow. Was it?
No.
We sat down on the grass. Was that the second time?
That was the second. That was our second meeting.
Okay, and so I revealed some stuff to you that's going to relate to this. I promise you, there's a point to this.
Yeah.
And so, and then I related the same material just for the record. I'm blanking again. Bob's cohort.
Neil.
Neil Gibbons, right?
Neil Gibbons.
And who's the other guy again?
Steve
Wine. I can't remember his last.
Long
They operate a tour thing.
European name.
And the point of this is that long before this being showed itself on the path, I came across. This is where I don't want to bring up the guy's name, but I'll bring it up just for the sake of this. Maybe I'll blank it out. I came across somebody named Goode. And I dabbled just a little bit in his information. Intriguing, you don't know, just like when you're listening to us talk, you're like, do we believe these nutcases? And so, as I listened to him speak, though, he mentioned these beings that he interacted with called Anshar. And the way that the Anshar interact with the surface population in their sleep, and sometimes, I guess, in the waking states and stuff, but the way that they train and teach people and interact and just in a positive way. And as I listened to this man talk, there was just something about it. Something even very unique. And I'm near the creek by the cemetery when I'm listening to this one more time, and I'm like, and I put this telepathic thought out to our friends here. I said, is this you? Because this sure as hell sounds like it's you. Because I soon realized, over the years, I shouldn't say soon, but over the years I realized that the same people that were interacting with me at 1213 are the same ones interacting here at the Grove. I'm like, I need to know if this is you. This sure as hell sounds like it's you. And they seem to be fairly honest with me. Like, if I get something wrong on a question, they don't present things to me. But if I tweaked a question and got something right, like, okay, voila, he's on to something, we'll give him a little bit of taste of this just so he can learn it. Okay, so they don't seem to want to, lie to you. They want you on that correct path of something, okay, whatever you're doing. So when I said to them that, I need to know that this is you, I focused on the two piney-looking trees in the cemetery, and I said, make that ground shake noticeably for many minutes. And now you can go back in time and see these YouTube videos of me talking about the ground shaking as well as a witness to the ground shaking. However, I had relayed this to Jack and gave Jack the behind the scenes details of which I don't want to bring up. So I brought him over there and I said the Ansharp thing. But I don't take it at face value. Yeah, they made the ground shake. Yeah, they made the tree glow, the flashing lights occurring. Sorry, I don't have it recorded on video. But they're trying to tell me, yes, that's us. But I'm not taking it at face value. That's just not how I work. The events are happening, but I'm just not quite ready to say, okay, you're really Anshar. So,
Is that the name that they're giving to you?
No, that's the name I got from Goode.
Yeah, I think people should know that. Yeah.
Right. That's right. This is not something that they told me. But the way that they're operating is they're saying yes, because I asked the question. I said, is this you? Now, I've done things in the past where I've asked things and got zero response. So it's almost like, nope, don't got it.
Yeah.
Give no response. Give no inkling they'll give no attention to that question because you're probably way off or whatever the case may be. But here we got, oh my God, the ground's shaking, lights are going off, and they're inducing memories. We'll do a separate video on the ground shaking thing. But the point is, they're trying to tell you, yeah, we're Anshar. And I'm still not quite. Told that to Jack, told that to Neil and them, just for the sake of the future, in case we have a conversation like this.
Yeah.
Now, we fast forward, here's this being, I'm looking up the photograph. I leave Jack, and I'm at a Dunkin' Donuts, and they're talking to me again, telepathic, look up this picture. He's your answer. Jack's got your answer. I'm like, what? Because you showed me this picture. It made this connection, I need to pay attention to this picture, yet you somehow don't remember it. It's so funny.
I don't.
And so I did, and it took me all night. All night, so obscure. And here I find out who did this drawing, who was behind it, who authorized it. Guess who it was? Goode. Weird. But what gets weirder is when you find out exactly when he talks about these beings. And the one in the path is supposedly called a sentinel. And Jack, you got to read the document today on the notes I've been taking. That's as much information as I have. That's a very small amount of information. But according to Corey, when he's taken by the Anshar and they're visiting these ancient sites and doing certain things, these beings that they thought were artificial intelligence because they look holographic in nature. That's the thing when I started reading this shit. This is so weird. And the way that these holographic in nature beings are, when they telepathically communicate, they spit these colors and these shapes off their body. How could you imagine this stuff? And now it's turning out that it's related somehow, according to this guy Corey, to the Anshar.
Yeah.
You know, like is this something we need to pay attention to? How do you react to some of this? I mean, like, do you think you should pay attention? Should we be super cautious?
Both. I think it's important to pay attention because if you're experiencing it and then others are experiencing similar things, it's definitely important to pay attention to. You know, as a paranormal investigator, you look for patterns, and this is definitely a pattern. But yeah, if we go with all of this is real, all of this is legitimate, then you need to proceed with caution because you are dealing with other intelligences.
Sure.
You always have to proceed with caution.
And I do. As much as they're positive, I still am kind of like not taking everything at face value.
Yeah.
You know, is there ulterior motives? And I bet you there are. It's just doesn't seem to be negative.
Right.
It's just based on how they operate.
Not everything is malevolent.
No.
Yeah.
No.
But you proceed with caution.
And Mr. Observer, I know there's something related to this that I was supposed to bring up.
I mean, just the fact that you showed me the photos.
I'm going to wait for the siren to go off. I'm going to pause this. You feeling kind of dizzy right now?
Yeah. I don't know why.
That's cool, man. Maybe you need to eat.
No, I'm good.
Yeah? We're going to try and finish this up a little bit. I had to stop for a eating and smoke break, I guess, and wait for other noise to go by. So where were we? Where did we leave off again? The Observer.
The Observer.
Yeah. So well, at some point you don't mind yourself being revealed, but I think it's interesting right now the way it's just kind of panning out.
It's gonna happen.
As soon as I got done with Jack, it was either that day or the next day, I did contact you and then tell you about our conversation.
Yes.
And then at some point, I think I waited. I don't know how long I waited actually, but then I showed you the photograph.
I think 2 days, 3 days.
I don't remember.
Something.
I thought it
I'm
was
not too
weekish
sure.
or something, but I showed you the photograph of this depiction from Corey Goode. That at least it was authorized by Corey Goode or something, right?
Yeah.
Again, it has a lot of discrepancies.
Yeah, we'll go with them.
Okay, we'll keep this thing going. Now, this is going to be a little haphazard in the conversation, so I'm not because I don't want to give a life story. At some point, I wanted to reveal details to the public, and I was working my way up to it, so I started releasing videos called Hidden History, talking about little things here and there. And as the year started going on, I got to the end, and I'm like, if I tell people everything, that means I got to start from the beginning. I got to reveal everything, like just everything from the beginning. So 12, 13 years old, come on, that's just too much. And I'm like, forget this. And Jack probably agrees that the public's just not ready for it. It's going to draw out a lot of bad things, even if some good comes out of it. And so I shut down. Mr. Observer, when I shut down, this is the conversation we kind of had before, but I had to scrap because the audio was bad.
Yeah.
One day, we had a couple of these conversations, but last year it's more relevant.
Oh yeah.
You were kind of upset that I was going to go away from YouTube.
Yeah. I mean, it, to a certain extent, really kind of pissed me off a little bit because, like, dude, like, this information
Is important.
is very important and needs to be said and needs to be not exposed in a bad way, but like regardless if it's you or anyone, it needs to be out there.
Right. But what's going to happen when people find out it's not dead people and it's not human, and then they start throwing in things like the words alien and extraterrestrial without any real context of what they're dealing with?
Well, that's going to happen regardless.
Yeah.
But then you're going to have really decent people come forward
And start talking.
Yeah.
Hopefully with real experiences.
Because keeping it quiet, we're never going to hear those experiences.
One of the things I noticed about Corey Goode was he worried that everybody was contacting, they had their focus and intent all in these so-called Anshar. And yet it is much, 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 much more than this so-called Anshar. Because I just put it this way at this point, like, there are multiple types of beings. I just got to see one type that is not Anshar. And but at that point it's kind of like there's people talking Rubio. All right, we're back. But But talking with you, knowing I wanted to just get away from YouTube, I said, if I tell you what, if our friends, the intelligence, wants me to speak, they know how to contact me.
Oh yeah.
I brought that up to you.
Definitely. Yep.
And I made a joking statement where I went, because I thought about Denise Travis from the 70s when she witnessed a blue light with her sister, and Denise put her hand through it, yet she felt nothing. My idea was, hey, if they want to contact me, just show me a light that I can feel some sciencey things from it. It was just strictly a joke, kind of a statement.
Yeah.
Probably only a little bit of seriousness to it, but it was more just like just throwing it out there. And now we fast forward with that situation where I told you there was going to be flashing lights behind me, kind of thing.
Yep.
I kind of felt like that was going to start happening, which it kind of did, because the bridge light incident. Now, the bridge light incident is very interesting, and I'm going to give some more details of what happened that wasn't mentioned. So I tell you, these beings have been with me most of my life, interacting. Definitely not alone, but they've been interacting. Now, when I went out to Las Vegas for a couple of years, some of my weekends I'd spend in Death Valley, actually the mountaintops right next to Death Valley, and there was a light in the sky, and because this whole Stephen Greer thing, Jack, you're familiar with Stephen Greer? I don't think you really trusted Stephen Greer.
No, I don't.
And I understand that. Like I believe him, but I don't trust him.
A lot of people in ufology in general don't trust.
Right, there's something off.
Yeah.
Right. But the fact that I was having these weird interactions throughout my life with these lights in the skies, when I go out there, I can't help think of Joshua Tree connected with Stephen Greer.
Yeah.
You were familiar with the Joshua Tree thing?
Yeah. Well, there's people that believe that he might mean well, but he's being guided in the wrong direction.
Being used as some tool. He's being used as a tool for something.
Correct.
Right. And that's what I worried about. So it doesn't matter, though. I thought, well, if this Stephen Greer is coming up with his protocol of mentally connecting with things, and then groups of people are watching these things happen in the sky, I thought, well, if I could do these mental tricks, why it shouldn't be hard? So I'm sitting up on this mountaintop, and I just put that thought out where I was located on the map, on the Earth's map, so to speak, and just said, why don't you stop on by and say hello? And next thing, I have this bright light surrounding the entire van. It's making my heart jump, and I turn around, I look up in the sky, and it flashes again at me, and then eventually it goes up into the atmosphere. Later on down the road, I brought a buddy out there who got to witness it once, but I didn't tell him what I was doing. And he's like, is that a UFO? I think I mentioned that in my last video. And but the point is, fast forward here with the Grove, where we're at right now, Rubio Woods, is where I wanted to establish a new way of contact, a new area, so it would make people kind of wake up. Like, something's not right. We never hear about Rubio Woods. Why are things now occurring in Rubio Woods? But when I was at the bridge last year by the pond, I focused my intent under the bridge, intent of our friends out there, and I said, I would like you to replicate what you did to me in the desert, but under the bridge in a specific spot. And sure enough, here's some of the details I didn't release before. Sitting at the same spot where they told me to contact Jack, I wanted, and actually, observer, you get to play a role here, because I told you some of this. I felt like I needed to get up from the bench, and I needed to start walking. This happens kind of frequently when I meet people for interviews or whatever, having experiences. It's like a robotic, you're being told, get up, go, start walking, turn left, turn right. So I'm walking out of this zone. I go across the street by the roped entrance to the path that goes to the cemetery. As I get a few hundred feet in, or whatever it was, I'm told stop. And of course, I stop. And I'm supposed to be waiting for somebody. Eventually, somebody was walking from the cemetery down the path, and then we got to talking, and I knew it had to be this guy. And as we're talking, we go back to the cemetery at some point, and I knew there was something about this, I had to be at the right place at the right time, and this guy was going to help me be there at the right place at the right time because of this interaction. And sure enough, the guy what was his name again? Jesus, the guy that witnessed the light again. Sorry, I'm blanking on your name, dude. Anyway, the guy who witnessed the bridge light happens to show up, and I'm just like, hey, how you doing? So, they see anything spooky? No. Have you ever? Like, as a matter of fact, I did. And he mentions the direction of it, and usually what I will do is I will just take in the person's experience, listen to it, And then later on, I will have them I will walk them over to where they witnessed something, and I will get them on video or whatever. This time, there was oh man, there was something about it. I'm like, no, we need to just take this guy directly there and start talking to him. And so that's why it looked kind of weird on video. We're just kind of like chatty, talking fast like I am now. And it was later when, and I did put a video out about that where, okay, just deal with whatever. So it was later when that ball light incident happened on my shoulder that you can go back and watch and that I talk about. But obviously, Mr. Observer, you know, we talked about the whole seeing the lights behind me kind of thing.
Yep.
You know, this guy obviously saw it. I felt it. He couldn't have lied to me because I felt it and all this other these kind of variables. But Jack, when I talked to you that one time about seeing this being, I told you, hey, I would like to start bringing you out with some of your, maybe possibly some people you know, for the new location at Rubio Woods that I designated for new contacts. Mm-hmm. Now, this was prior to the bridge light incident.
Right.
Or at least me knowing about it anyway. I think it was, you know, whatever the case was, you know, it's better with the Observer than it was for you as far as the timeline goes.
Yeah.
You know, because I could be lying to you or something. But I did say that to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Did you put that together at the time?
No, we talked about it, and we both decided we don't know how good of an idea that is right now.
The idea of bringing the people out.
Right.
I'm saying when the actual bridge light actually occurred, did you put the connection between me telling you?
Oh, at the time, no.
Okay. I didn't ask you, so I figured I'd ask now.
No. Later on, yes, but it didn't happen right away, and I was like, oh, you know, it started happening afterwards.
Yeah. And then, Observer, at 6 o'clock, we were at the entrance one day. I said, hey, let's just kind of, unfortunately, you were dabbling in your phone as usual.
Yeah.
And then I saw that light across the street that turned out to be at the fiber optic box.
Yeah.
You know, and that's in Rubio Woods as well.
Across the street.
You know what I mean? It's just like now we're hearing you got some witnesses that are going to possibly be coming forward. But this is long before I designated the.
It was like 2 years ago, they said.
All right. So pay attention in the future. We might have some more eyewitnesses of stuff near Rubio Woods, or the next street over.
135th.
Yeah. Okay, here's this other one, Mr. Observer.
Yep.
One day you were at this same location we're speaking at now, and I had witnessed my first flashing light here and during the day.
Yes.
And you noticed me watching something?
Yeah.
And you said something possibly happened during this moment that I missed?
Was it the voice?
You said you thought you heard somebody say your name?
It was like a monotone, not my voice, but a very, like, clear.
Yeah. I didn't hear it, but, you know, clairaudient stuff can be like that, too. Yeah. I know that we know now, at least I know, based on the Mysterious Sounds video, which, you know, got its own separate topic. You can record things that some people can hear and others can't.
Yeah.
You know, you're not crazy. So it could just be a simple matter of something like that. But I found that interesting because hey, it's my first flashing light. You know. We're having like this side topic, how to approach the continuation of this conversation. And so maybe we should put it on the record a little bit, right? You know, it's like putting our asses on the line or whatever. Yes, this information is confusing. Jack was bringing that up, that this is, it's like, you know, I thought, you know, I'm reciting something after a 1,000-page book, like right in the middle of it, and you have no idea.
You got to keep in mind that Pete and I and the Observer have had conversation after conversation about the events of Bachelor's Grove, about these other intelligences. So, you know, he's not giving you a neat package right now.
No, I don't have answers for you. I can't say, you know, I don't want to give names. I may or may not edit out this Anshar labeling in the other stuff, you know, because you're dealing with more than just that. You know, there's a flashing light in the desert of California that also interacts with you in Chicago, and yet they're replicating it under the bridge at Rubio Woods. There is an interconnected relationship there. It doesn't mean they're all one species. Think of it more like as a family kind of thing, you know, if you want to do it that way. But there is something going on. Now, you could try to say, oh, they're deceiving you. They're reading your brain. They know all the events of your life, and they're just replicating whatever you're asking for. And it's a demon. My approach is, I barely touch on that in my evaluation. It is a part of my sanity check and being careful and stuff. But there comes a point where if you do that too much, you're going to get nowhere with this type of topic.
Yeah.
And you know, it's I don't know, Jack, if you have any thoughts on that.
You got to understand that there's going to be more discussion about this. There's going to be more videos. For those of you that are actually interested, for those of you that you feel that there is truth to what's being talked about, you got to hang tight, because this is a lot to take in.
I think people are going through the same journey that maybe I went through, what you're going through, observers going through in some ways. It's all this like journey thing. And even my time back from Vegas, when you watch my early videos, I still had a lot of questions, and they there have been some answers for me. So you got to watch some of my journey as I went through some of this in some ways, even if I held back from you.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, a lot of it's a work in progress, and
that's what it is.
Maybe you can figure some stuff out. Maybe you need to start interacting with.
That's what this video is for. We need to bring this, up to people and see if you guys have, you could connect a dot here or there.
Yeah.
Right. And learn the difference between fantasy and connecting the dots of just your basic events. Like I said, I posed the question to them: Are you the Anshar? Make the ground shake. I didn't ask for the lights, but make the ground shake. That's their way of saying yes. I don't take it at face value, but if you got circumstances where you're doing that, you're asking questions that are maybe even very bizarre, and they're giving you a direct, exactly what you're asking for. I call that not the truth meter, but a confidence meter, of where you're going maybe in the right direction. Something to pay attention to, unless you think you're being deceived. But I think people coming forward talking about things would be nice.
Yeah.
I hide things. I don't mention things. Hell, this guy Corey Goode, he goes out of his way not to say things, mix things up on purpose. He talks about that. His depictions and the drawings that he has done, he purposely omits things. I don't know. It's just we're all learning. This is kind of a learning curve thing, and people that are interacting with beings outside the grove, and maybe right after a visit. Some of we'll get into this later in the future, but some of your descriptions are matching some of Corey's material.
Oh, yeah.
Stuff that I had no idea about. Maybe people need to pay attention to Corey, but it's not about Corey, it's not about me, it's not about Jack, not about the observer, it's about the material and how this stuff is coming out.
Definitely. I mean,
so, maybe we should wrap this up. If I missed something, we'll come back to it, but I appreciate everybody being here today at the new spot. And, until next time.
Meet me at the grove. Right!